y'all. Welcome to the Is That Like a Thing podcast, where the answer is always yes, and we most definitely will be talking about it. I am Becky, and I am here with my co-hosts, Magen and
Hello.
Crystal, and our beautiful producer, Emily, and we are so excited that you are here today. And we hope that you had a chance to listen to last week's podcast where we talked about the first steps in a dream and a God-sized dream. What do you do? How do you walk in it? But this week, we are going to do a deep dive into the subject of finding joy in the work, in the hard work specifically. How do you keep going? How do you keep working when you really just don't want to? Has anyone ever had that struggle in your life? And what do you do? And how do we find the joy? Magen, how do we find the joy?
I was having lunch with someone and I was saying, I just don't want to do this. I just don't want to do this part. I don't like it. And I love her because she just very point blank tells me the truth. And she just looked at me and she said, everyone has to do the dishes. Everyone has to do the stuff that isn't fun. Like in our attempt to like walk forward, we talked about striding forward. In our attempt to stride forward in obedience before the Lord, there's always going to be things we don't want to do. When I'm filming a video, listen, let me tell you, I don't like filming the video. It takes forever. And I don't like editing.
You're really good at it, though.
I can do it. And I like getting to put the finished product out into the world because I love getting to hear if it ministered to people and how it ministered to them. And so you do the dishes.
It's hard to do find the willpower to do the things behind the scenes.
It is.
That no one sees. So all the work that it takes to put out the finished product.
Yeah.
That's the hard stuff. It's not, the glamorous stuff.
It's never glamorous.
But I feel like the thing that I have to realign my mind. I do feel like when I'm doing the things I don't want to do, or I'm looking at the long to-do list, I have to reevaluate, number one, why am I saying this? Like, am I just dreading it? Do I love this? Is this still something I should be doing? The answer normally is like, yes, Megan, the Lord has not told me to stop making videos. It's just, it sucks to do sometimes. But I have to reevaluate and realign my thinking. And I think gratitude plays a huge part in this. So you look at your to-do list, and I have to write sometimes next to my to-do list, Lord, thank you for letting me get to do all of this. Thank you for trusting me enough. I think that we talk about like faithfulness. The Lord tells us, like, if you're faithful in the small, it's only then that I'll give you more to do. And so the to-do list is the faithfulness in the small, and being grateful for those things is important too.
That's good. I think having gratitude will beg of you to stop looking at what you don't have and what you lack, where you're deficient, where you are not talented, because that is the humility, like we were talking about in the last episode. It causes massive amounts of humility to go through and do the things that we're not good at.
And only looking at the things you lack stills your joy. Choosing joy is impossible if you're not choosing gratitude first.
Right.
It just is.
Right. And
it's almost like the joy comes from having an attitude of gratitude. I mean, that's where the joy it comes from, is when you position your heart, like Crystal, you were saying, to focus on the things that you have, or the job that you get to do, versus the job you have to do, or the things that you lack. Yeah,
Brene Brown wrote an entire book about it, like scientifically researched that joy is impossible without gratitude first. So starting to implement small acts of gratitude is what starts building this like garden of joy. And so you look at your kids and you find gratitude there. You look at your apartment and you're like, you find things you're grateful about. And those are the things, that's what starts building joy in you, like real, true joy.
And that is the goal. I think that as we do the work and as we put our head down, the goal is to really be thankful that you even have this dream to work towards, that you even have something on your heart to give birth to, and the joy of doing the thing. I will never forget that the years that Will and I spent doing behind the scenes work, recording in our house, writing songs that nobody would ever hear and still have not heard to this day, and doing all the things that really made me humble. I mean, it really did, to really do something thinking everything that I do is not going to be awesome. And so doing that work and but I look back on it now and I think, gosh, how fun was that? It was just him and I. There was no pressure. And now when I'm doing songs and I'm writing songs for a project or writing songs to be pitched to somebody, there is this pressure like, oh my gosh, it's got to be good. And the joy that I had doing the work with him, the joy that I had in our apartment when nobody was going to hear what we were doing. And so I really think that there is something about it. And if we don't enjoy it, we'll look back and be sorrowful that we didn't enjoy it. Because I can look back and think, man, if I'd only saw the beauty in that moment and the way that God was knitting our hearts together, the way that God was just cultivating humility and cultivating hard work ethics in me, was a very good time.
What do you think keeps you from enjoying the work? So I guess that is part of finding joy in the work, is enjoying the work. I hadn't thought about that, but that's probably a big chunk of having joy. But what do you think it is that keeps you from enjoying
the work?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, like the word work does not invoke joy.
Because it still is work. I mean, you might be doing something that you love, but at the end of the day, it's still work.
It's still work.
It's still not watching Netflix and eating popcorn,
That was, I have a friend of mine that she's so young and talented. She just signed her first record deal. And, she was asking me what's, not like that I can help you. When I sign my first record deal. I mean, but I said, honestly, you're doing your dreams. Don't get tired and burnt out while you're doing the work to the dream. Give yourself time to rest. Give yourself time to... That's So I think because when we're working, I think that rest and Sabbath and peace and choosing that, which is really hard sometimes, I think really sitting down and finding peace in it is a decision. It's not something that you're going to just, okay, I'm going to sit down and, and rest isn't going to happen when you're working.
You can't work on an empty tank. You can't keep going. You can't find the joy. Burnout is real, even in ministry. Oh. We all know that. Oh. Especially when you're not seeing fruits from your labor.
I feel like in ministry, burnout is
worse.
I think that every single person in ministry has experienced burnout. Yeah. I don't know anyone in ministry who has not.
So I think it would be, this is not what we plan to do, but I think it would be beneficial to real quick talk about what does it look like for you to rest or to fill your tank up so that you can continue working. What does that look like?
Is Netflix binge watching?
Is
valid?
it? I mean, I do. That's what I would say that that's part of. I love to, as part of my resting, I do binge Netflix.
Binge.
And I'm
on a bender.
I'm on a bender.
I'm on a Netflix bender. Y'all watch out.
And I have to say, between Christmas and Jeff swearing in, when we moved him to Austin, there was 4 weeks there. I mean, and I had planned for the rest period where I just was like, we're going to take these obligations of ministry, of artwork, of business off the table. And if I want to do those things, then great. But if I want to lay in my bed all day and watch Netflix, then that's okay too. And I did a lot of that. And at the end, I felt a little guilty. I was like, man, now I'm feeling behind. And Jeff was like, no, Becky, you needed that time. You had worked really hard up until that point, and you had given yourself permission to do the rest part of it, and now you pick up and you get back to work and you don't feel guilty about it. So for me, it is, I do feel like time with my family, my nuclear family, my husband and my kids does fill my tank up a little bit. I am an introvert, so I do like to be by myself, but and binge watch Netflix or whatever. But what does it look like for you? Because I know everybody has different things that fill their tank,
Megan,
or that make you feel rested.
What do you do?
I feel like I experienced burnout I didn't know I was burnt out until leaving where we had lived and moving back to Dallas. I didn't know I was burnt out. I didn't know that I was just completely jaded in ministry at that point, because it was where I had worked it was a production factory. Like, you just kept spitting out more and more and more, and you kept giving and giving and giving, and they kept taking and taking and taking. And I think that that's just like the nature of ministry a little bit. But I also think that it was just 10 years of huge events after huge events after Sundays. And at a certain point you just get tired. So I was burnt out. I don't know what I do to rest. I know that time with the Lord, I truly believe this. Like, I love my family and I love my kids. They're my everything, but it doesn't fill me. I don't feel refreshed.
Yes, that's a good word.
I feel
refreshed.
tired.
Yeah, depleted
because it's emotionally giving. But I'm an Enneagram 8, and I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I am an introvert, and I do feel like time with the Lord alone really does fill my tank. I think that there is a supernatural element to time with the Lord. That's just the reality, is that the Holy Spirit does refresh and revive you as you spend time with him. Also, for me, I'm alone, and so that helps. I don't know. I think for me, whenever I go on a bender, and by bender, I mean like a Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon.
No, I'm not the only one.
Bender. It's to emotionally detach, because I feel like
almost.
I only have a certain amount of emotions to like pour out. And sometimes, or reading, I read a lot, and it's just to like emotionally detach.
Check out. Yeah.
Check out.
I think that's so interesting. Like, I think that you fueling on your own, because I'm very opposite than that. Like, for me, being refueled is not having any plans and having all my people in the room with me with no plans. Like, that makes me excited.
But what are you going to do with all those people?
It doesn't matter.
In your house?
As long, hey, quality time, they say, is a love language. I'm like, mine doesn't even have to be quality. All you can do is
just time,
sit in the same room with me.
Yeah.
And that refuels me. But as I get older, though, I am finding my time with the Lord, and what refreshes me is like to put on music without words and let my mind just go for a jog, and honestly have no plans is what really refuels me, is not having any plans and just having space to kind of just be and let my mind wander a little bit. We'll talk about that in another episode. I think that's a lot to do with the fear of being alone. Yeah. But I enjoy both sitting and just being able to wander with no plan. And I also enjoy just sitting with my people. Not all people, just your people, your circle. My husband and my 2 boys. That gives me peace. If you start adding any more into the mix, I'm going to feel the need to start entertaining people. Yeah. I'm going to feel the need to make sure everyone's happy. And if there's a lull, I'm going to talk, So I think it's just the people that I don't have to meet any expectations. So, and that would be just my immediate family, my husband, my 2 boys. So that really gives me rest. It really refuels me.
So yes, Crystal, I feel like it's so important to find rest and know what it is that fills your tank, because in order for us to keep going and to not experience the burnout, I do think that rest and refreshment and knowing what brings us that, which we're all different, is important. And I think taking time to rest and taking time to refuel and fill our tanks is often really hard, because there's so much pressure from the world to achieve, to be successful. And what is that really?
Ooh, so then the conversation really comes down to, like, if you want to find joy in the work, then we've got to figure out what is our definition of success. Right?
And I think it comes down to also, out of that is, are you finding joy in the success?
Yes.
Or are you finding joy in what the Lord's called you to do?
Yeah. So am I only finding joy in when I put out the video and there's a good response? Then do I push off joy until that moment? Or do I find joy in just the sheer obedience of like doing what God has called me to? So I recognize and find gratitude in making the video and editing the video. And that's finding joy in the work.
Mm-hmm. And Crystal, you were talking about a biblical definition of success for you is really the fruits of the Spirit.
Well, I think it is, if we all strip it back, like fruit is how, God looks at us as success. It's not actual achievements. It's those fruits of the Holy Spirit. So I think in the kingdom, we're not looking for achievements. We're looking for the fruit of the Spirit, the Holy Spirit. And in Galatians 5, it says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such, there is no law. So these are the fruit that God is trying to develop in us. I think as we're reaching towards those goals, he's really trying to develop the fruits of the Spirit in us. And we cannot focus on the achievements and on the outcome of what we're looking for. And so the fruits of the Spirit are what we're actually looking for.
So it's not even really about the outcome of the said goal or dream. It's about what God is doing inside of us while we are working.
It's the faithfulness. And my pastor always says the definition of success for a believer is faithfulness. That's the definition of success for us.
Yes.
So it's like a reprogramming and a realignment in our minds of what we look at as success and what is being successful. So did I get 25 new followers from this? Like that, I am tempted to always believe that that is the success. But how the Lord views success is, did I faithfully and joyfully, without complaining, be obedient to him? And if I am, then that is success. Is our faithfulness, joyful faithfulness.
It kind of goes back to those words that, and I don't even know where this is at in the Bible, that it says, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Faithful, good and faithful servant. So that is actually what he's going to say. Were you faithful serving?
Were you faithful? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Emily, whenever we were talking about this, you kind of brought up, and I loved your point. You kind of talked about how Jesus had to like reprogram and realign even the disciples' definition of success and what is successful.
Yeah, it was a hard parenting moment coming home from Target one day. And I just remember seeing my kids in the back seat and they're, of course, hitting each other in the face or something and screaming. And I just remember, it's like my whole life flashed before my eyes. And I was so unhappy with my life in that moment. It was a really discontent moment for me. And I just remember him asking me this question. And I don't say that I hear from the Lord often, but this was a very clear moment. And he said, hey, whose kingdom are you living in? And I just really, honestly, it took me the next couple of years to chew on that. And I remember reading back through the entire, all of the Gospels, all 4 Gospels, and marking in my Bible on the page every time Jesus talked about the kingdom of heaven is like this. The kingdom of heaven is like that. And I think I wrote down something like it was 87 times that he was trying to teach them and really reprogram their thought process toward what is the kingdom? Why is he even there? What is his pursuit as the king? What is his kingdom actually about? And for them, it was all about he needs to sit on some throne in Jerusalem and politically take over and overthrow Rome and be this thing that they thought he was supposed to be. And the whole time he was trying to teach them the kingdom of God is not what you think it is. Like your aim and even your agenda for me is wrong. And for me, it was like realizing that my aim and my agenda for my own life was not about his kingdom. It was about my kingdom. It's been like a huge turning point for me to try to see through a different lens.
And that's what I feel like is what the Lord is constantly trying to do in us as well. How he kind of realigned the disciples, he's realigning in us as well. Like, what is success? Are you being faithful to me? And so I think that as we look at joy in the work, that is a realignment in itself. We are not trained to enjoy the work. We're trained to enjoy the outcome. But the Lord calls us to find joy in the work, because like the outcome, I don't even know if the Lord cares about the outcomes. The Lord cares about what you do, how you are, and the character that is born in the wilderness, in the struggle, and when you're choosing to do the hard stuff because you love the Lord and you want to be obedient, and you're taking the extra step of saying, not just saying, I want to be obedient to you, I want to be joyful in my obedience to you. I can like complain with the best of them. I can just be like, are you kidding me? I don't want to do this again. Like, but I feel like the Lord calls us to joyful obedience, and there is a supernatural character building that happens when we choose that and when we walk in that.
I think that you're right, though. We are not programmed, like Emily was saying, we're not programmed to enjoy the work. Mm-mm. And Satan uses that against us so often when things get hard or when things get uncomfortable. And we've become this culture of people, especially in America, where we like to be comfortable and we want everything and we want it now and we want that success now. And the reality is the outcome is not up to us. It is up to the Lord, no matter how hard we work or how little we work, to be honest. But he has called us to work and to do everything as if it was unto him.
Preach.
But if you think about it, comfort, the reason we want to be comfortable and we don't want to work is because we don't want to sacrifice anything. We don't want to sacrifice our time.
Sucks.
Yes. We don't want to sacrifice our time. We don't want to sacrifice our happiness. We don't want to sacrifice our money, for sure, not our money. Mm-mm. And so maybe it comes down to, what are we willing to sacrifice? What in our life are we holding too tightly of? And what are we willing to let go? I mean, think about the disciples, like Emily was saying. Jesus said to them, get up and follow me. They left everything to go and follow him, to be his disciples, and then to go and build the church and spread the gospel. They were willing to leave everything. Are we willing to leave everything? I do believe that even though most of them, I don't know what the number is, but most of them ended up being martyrs and dying for the cause, I believe without a shadow of a doubt that they found joy in what they were doing because they were doing it unto the Lord.
Oh, Paul. To live is Christ. To die is gain.
Yeah.
He's saying, hey, no matter what happens to me, it's a gain. It's a positive, because to live here and to continue to preach the gospel is Christ. To die is to be with Christ. It's a win-win, baby. And I just love that, because he's saying that in a freaking prison.
Yeah.
And that's the definition. Like, the Lord, whenever he gives us the word of God, like, that's our realignment, is to look at Paul, look at these people who are truly living out what the Lord calls us to live out, which is to live is Christ, to die is gain. As long as I'm here on this earth, I will shine the light of God into a dark and dying world joyfully. And whenever I die, I'm going to be with Jesus.
And don't you think, like, it took them faith to serve to the very end, because they were not defining success as an outcome,
because they didn't see the fruit of their labor.
Are,
yes,
thousands of years later, as fruit and a product of the work that they did and their lives that they gave to the ministry. So think about that. Like, think about the work that you're doing now. Will it live on? Will it be something for people to look back on? You think of great hymns, you think of great, maybe you won't see your fruit here and now, but look at the product of their work. We are now fruit that comes into the kingdom, and our lives have been changed and shaped by the words that they wrote, the things that they said, in the life that they lived for Jesus.
And for me, was exactly what I needed to hear in the moment, because kids fighting in the back seat and screaming, and we were able to adopt but not able to have bio kids, and there was just a lot of discontent in me in general. And then I think about their future. I think about them being in our family forever, and us being a family, and when the Lord, like, the moments that are gonna come, like the moments when they give their life to the Lord, which is our greatest hope and prayer. The moments when they, shepherd of their own family someday, or their own ministries, or whatever the Lord calls them to do with their life. That is the kingdom.
Yeah. That's fruit. No, that is fruit, and it's a beautiful picture of what we're working towards and for. It's something greater than an outcome and a success, because you think about people that have probably done really great things. We enjoy their music. But have they nurtured, have they fed our souls? Like, we like to bebop, around to certain songs, and that has its place. But think about the people that have really, really invested in you, that it wasn't out in public, it was in private, but has changed your life and the trajectory of your life. That's fruit. The things that are done behind closed doors, and even the relationships that we all have and we cultivate behind the scenes. And it's messy work. It's dirty work. You get your hands dirty. But the fruit that comes from it is worth it. It's worth it.
And I think it's a big pill to swallow for some people to figure out. I think for some listeners, it's very overwhelming to think, okay, how do I find joy with this work? How do I find joy where I'm at? And I think when you look at it, just like we're talking about the dreams, I think when you look at it, it becomes overwhelming of how do I do this? And I think practically speaking, all the Lord calls you to do is be responsible with what he's given you now. And so all he's called you to do is be responsible with your day right now and your hour right now. And so looking at your hour and looking at what you have to do, be responsible to the Lord just right there.
And I'll think too, are we waiting to have joy for an outcome? Are we waiting till we're successful, until the book sells 1 million copies? Let's be real. Take care of your people now. Enjoy the work, because you might not get the outcome that you're expecting. Don't wait to have that joy until you see a definition of worldly success.
I think a lot of joy comes from just being in the center of the will of God. Yeah. And that's where the peace that passes understanding is. That's where it lives, is in the center of the will of God. And so when you are doing the work, when you're being responsible with your day and your time and the people that God has given you now, even if your dream is huge and big and way far off, and that it's 10 years down the line to see, to even possibly see fruit from that labor, if you're faithful today, then that is where the joy comes from. But I will say, for all of us, I think it can get really tiresome waiting to see the fruit and waiting to see any sort of movement. Or when I say success, I don't even mean monetary or follows or likes or whatever the world's definition of success is, but just fruit, just change, just some sort of progress. And it can be extremely frustrating and laborious to just wait on that, especially when your kids are young, Emily, and it's a very physical labor right now. It's very physical.
It's a contact sport.
Yes, it's very physical. And you're just I just want to know that something I'm doing, something that I'm saying is paying off or going to pay off. And I think when we get to those places, it's really easy to quit. It's really easy to stop finding joy in it. It's really easy to say,
give up.
To get angry at the Lord, get angry at each other, get irritable. That's my first line of defense.
Angry at the Lord is my first, God, you could change this if you wanted to, and you're not.
Yes.
Okay. I love that you guys say that. I guess because I don't have a history, with I grew up in a home that we didn't go to church, and so there's not a lot of doctrine and church going in my background. I start thinking it's me. I start blaming myself. I don't blame God. I get mad, and instead of looking at and getting angry at God, I'm I get it, Lord. I'm just not worthy.
You're not worthy.
I'm not worthy. I get it. Thank you for suffering this fool. That's the way I think.
I'm you're using that ding dong over there. Might as well be me too. Come on, God.
But I do want to encourage people right now with, I'm 42 today, I think. I don't, yeah.
Yay,
so
it's her
today,
birthday.
Happy birthday.
And I did not say that for this, but thank you. But I'm 42 today, and
you don't look a day over 25.
thank you, honey. Thank you. Thank you, baby. But I, for years, did this work that I felt like nobody would ever hear or would ever see the light of day. The songs I wrote in secret, or that I had hopes for, but nothing ever came of it. And let me tell you something that has been happening here almost a decade later. Songs that I wrote way back when I've been getting messages from people lately. It almost as to encourage me to keep my head down, keep working, keep enjoying the work, because there is fruit, whether you see it or not. And so let me encourage you by saying, I've been getting these messages randomly from people about songs that didn't go on the radio, songs that never made it on a hot, 100, not even a 100 list. And I've been getting messages from people saying, hey, thank you so much for writing this song. And I'm thinking, how do you know about that song even? I ran across it. Or there was one girl that said, you were teaching a class about 10 years ago. I honestly don't even remember where this was. And you started singing a line to a song that you had written, and we all started singing with you. And right now I'm losing a friend, and I feel like my whole world's falling apart. And the line that you had said was, this world's not my home. I don't even remember the full song. I just remember that. And I'm taking comfort in that. And I thought, whoa, this is insane. This is almost a decade ago. So I think when we do the work and we do it with a faithful heart and with faithfulness, whether we see it or not, we have to trust that God's using it. And so I think that's important as you labor and you work. Just remember whatever you're putting your hands to in those little small ways on the things that you may think never see the light of day would surprise you as to how God's using it. And sometimes people think they don't think to tell you, and that's okay. That's not what we're looking for, right? We're not looking for people to tell us what we're doing is good.
I was literally just thinking of that scripture, Luke 16:10. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. I think in all of this, there is a stewardship aspect of faithfully stewarding what God has given you, like understanding wilderness is inevitable, of the idea of sometimes you just have to do it. And it's not fun, and you do have to do the dirty dishes, and you just keep doing it, and you just keep coming back to it. I think that is part of it, but what you're doing in those moments is God is teaching us how to be faithful, how to steward the things he's giving us to steward well. And I think that there's also an aspect of like refiner's fire, and how the Lord, in that, whenever you're choosing to do the hard work and the hard stuff, the Lord is refining you. There's just I think that there's so much that happens between point A and point B. So like the dream being conceptualized in your mind, and actually like getting to the outcome of the dream. There's so much, and that's the hard work. Mm-hmm. And that's what gets you there. That's the like gas in the tank. And God cares about everything that happens there. Like the Lord cares about everything that happens on the way there, on the journey there, because that is what's making us look more like Jesus at the end of our life. Mm-hmm. It's not the success at the end. It's the journey that makes us look more like Jesus.
And maybe it's that he doesn't necessarily care about the dream. He cares about you. Mm. And that's
his kingdom.
And his kingdom. And,
yeah.
and everybody around him, which is his kingdom. Mm. And I'm wondering if perhaps he is trying to work. He uses those dreams not only for his kingdom, which is everyone else, but also for us.
Yeah.
To build character in us, and to build refining fire, build faithfulness.
I really think like it says, without vision, people perish. And God knows we need vision. We need those dreams, or we would really, truly, what's the point? And
I'd be Netflixing and doing my nails every night, happily.
See, but why?
Because I ain't got nothing better, baby. I don't have anything motivating me or moving forward. Yeah. So I think you have a really good point of like, the Lord gives us dreams for so many reasons.
Right.
One of which, that's the vehicle in which he uses to change us and to refine us and to make us different. Or else I know I'd be like just reading books and only reading Netflix, and there's no spiritual growth from watching another episode of whatever it is.
Y'all, and you know what's so cool is he doesn't need us to further his kingdom.
No.
He chooses to use us.
Yes.
He chooses to give us these dreams and these passions for the furthering of his kingdom. And what a privilege it is for us to be able to work in that and to walk forward.
Which brings us all the way back around to the very top of gratitude in the work. Joy in the work.
Joy comes from gratitude.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that you guys found this episode super encouraging. I know that I did, and I know I needed it. I needed the refresher. I needed the reminder of this is how we are going to walk forward in our dream, in our work. And this week, we were talking about all the work that we are choosing to do, the steps that we are choosing to walk forward in. But we hope that you will join us next week when we talk about the work that chose us.
Ooh.
And that's going to be a hard one because it's a lot harder to find contentment and joy in the circumstances that were given to you and not the ones that you chose. Are y'all excited about that one?
I mean,
it's going to be a hard one, but it'll be good.
In my mind, the work that chooses me, I'm like running from it. I'm like hiding in a dark bathroom. I'm like, it won't find me here. No. You can't choose me. I reject you. But no, it still finds me.
But it ends up being probably our greatest gift is that work that chooses us, that we would have we would have never said, I want to be, because I was a stay-at-home mom for over 10 years. I want to be a stay-at-home mom and I don't want to work. That was not my choice, but I felt the Lord calling me to do it. And also it just was not going to be worth it for me to work.
Right.
So it was that moment in time. But there's also people that, they have the child that's born with special needs or, are walking through infertility or walking through all the things that end up having to work in us, and God has to work in us. And these are not the things that we would have chosen. So it's not just, I was called to be a stay-at-home mom. We're talking about massive cards being dealt in your life that uproot everything that you had.
It's the stuff that chooses us.
Yeah, the stuff of life
that God allows to come to us.
This is true. And I even think about Becky, I think about you and Jeff in the political arena and how hard that is, and being called to it and been like, I'm not sure this is what I wanted, but
it was not what I wanted.
Yeah.
But it is what, and that's
it's what God gave you. And he said, and called Jeff too. And you
Very
as his
clearly.
wife are right there with him. And I admire you both, and watching you walk this out, even seeing a small snippet of what goes on behind the scenes. I have so much mad respect for answering a calling that might be very intimidating.
And outside your comfort zone, outside what you wanted. So we will be talking about that next week, and we hope that you will join us.
It's going to be good.
In the meantime, we do hope that you found this episode encouraging and meets you kind of where you're at today. As always, we have been praying for this episode. We're praying for all of you who are listening, and that the Lord would do a work in you and in us. And one of the things I wanted to close with is that we are doing this work unto the Lord. We need that reminder. I need that reminder every single day. This is not about me, my glory, my kingdom. Like Emily said, this is about the Lord. And in Colossians 3, Paul says, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. We do all of our work unto the Lord, not unto each other, not for the person that's going to see it, not for the person that's going to appreciate it, follow it, like it, love it, criticize it. We're not doing it for them. We're doing it for the Lord. So whatever your hands find to do this week, do it heartily as unto the Lord. And we'll see you right back here next week to talk about the work that chose us and finding contentment there. Thanks for joining us on the Is That Like a Thing podcast. And we'll see you right back here next week. Have a great week.